Gary Journo's back outside the Newcastle United Media Centre for the last time this season. What a season it's been, Jordan. Speaking to Eddie Howe almost every week, it's been very nice, and hopefully Newcastle can get the job done on Sunday against Everton. Champions League fate in their own hands. A win, it's all sorted. Anything less, and they're relying on results elsewhere. But big questions for Eddie Howe ahead of the game on injuries, what Champions League football would mean, a bit on transfers as well, and potentially players playing their last game on Sunday at St James's Park as well. So, where do you want to start?
So we'll start with the Champions League. What they need to do, I mean, it's obvious. As you mentioned there, a win they need. People are talking about all the results. I'm not really interested in that because if Newcastle can't get the job done against Everton and beat Everton, then realistically you probably don't deserve to be there, and you don't want to rely on the team's results. I think
Eddie Howe doesn't either.
But
he said he's not even going to pay attention to it.
They're in such a privileged position to be the fact that they're going to the final day knowing what they're going to do, and that's perfect. Like, you don't want to be an Aston Villa who's got to rely on teams dropping points. Nottingham Forest as well. Newcastle are in the best position. Man City, obviously, out of those teams, and you would take that. So just get the job done on Sunday. I'm not really bothered what happens elsewhere. I don't want to be looking at results elsewhere. I just want to see Newcastle win the game. I don't have to check the results elsewhere if that's the case.
Yeah, it certainly calms the nerves though if you see other teams potentially losing.
It's a dynamic change, isn't it? Where, like, you see Newcastle are drawn and Villa score early or whatever.
It goes back to the Champions League. I remember watching the PSG Dortmund game with a keen eye because Newcastle actually did depend on that result directly. So yeah, it's a bit like that, but it's very much in Newcastle's hands. Very simple: win the game, and you're in the Champions League. And I think no other club, like you say, other than Man City, out of Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, Newcastle are in the best position, and you wouldn't swap the other team's fixtures for Newcastle's fixtures.
You wouldn't, no.
As bad as Man U have been, going to Old Trafford and needing to win is a daunting proposition for any team, even though they have been terrible this season, and on the back of a disappointing result against Spurs in the Europa League final. Villa have a terrible record at Old Trafford too. Newcastle historically have a bad record. I'd still back Aston Villa to win, but you'd prefer being on home turf against an Everton team who are not playing for anything. Not that Man U are playing for anything either, but you know what I mean. And then Nottingham Forest and Chelsea playing each other. You would rather play a team playing for nothing than a direct rival. So yeah, I think Newcastle are in the best position possible. I think you're right. If you can't beat Everton at home on the last game of the season, an Everton team playing for nothing, then you'll get what you deserve ultimately, whether that is Champions League football and you're relying on results elsewhere, or if you drop out and get Europa League. It's fair enough. But I think someone who could have a big say on Newcastle's Champions League status, Alexander Isak, or at least, if not Alexander Isak, maybe Callum Wilson as well, who we'll get onto. But Alexander Isak, that was where the press conference started. How is he doing? What's his fitness situation?
Yeah, well, typical Eddie, give nothing away.
Shock.
The update was that he hasn't trained with the group yet this week, but has trained individually, pain-free, he said, which I thought was interesting. But he did make the point of he's been running individually,
not playing football,
not kicking a ball.
Yeah.
Which, as simple as that sounds, he hasn't been kicking a ball, and depends how his groin feels when he does kick a ball. So I think Eddie said they would leave it till tomorrow, Saturday, to introduce him to training and see how he fares. But I think based on the update today, I would be surprised if he wasn't involved, because he may be carrying something, and unless it carries any sort of long-term effect, I think you involve him on Saturday. Sunday. Sorry, I think you've got to.
Yeah, I think even although Eddie Howe said that he'll only be involved if he's fit, I think an Alexander Isak who, with one day's training, who isn't maybe at full tilt, and he probably hasn't been at that for a while now, certainly probably since the Carabao Cup final, is a better and probably strikes more fear into Everton than like playing an academy player, naming two goalkeepers on the bench, or even Callum Wilson, what he's offered on the pitch. Like,
it's a big boost for the fans.
Yeah,
as well,
that's the thing. You see Alexander Isak's name on the team sheet, everyone's boosted, everyone's lifted, with the 2 pints as well.
Get
to St James's Park early.
It's a real classy gesture by the club, that, by the way. I'm not even joking here. I know I've got a smirk on my face, but I think that's really class, because they did it last time, obviously, against Chelsea. worked wonders.
Worked, yes, for an early kick-off.
Atmosphere was booming at 12 o'clock, got a 2-0 result. And then two pints, it depends, it might be teetotal, but 2 pints, 2 drinks, water, Coke, whatever you drink. I think that's really classy.
You're wasting it if you go up and go, pint of water.
Yeah, it's just tap water.
Yeah. But I'd back the atmosphere to be brilliant. Bank holiday weekend, 4 o'clock kick-off on a Sunday, loads on the line, Champions League football, chance to make it the most memorable season in pretty much any Newcastle fan's lifetime.
Yeah.
Like, let's enjoy the day, let's get the win. I think that's the attitude and that's the mentality fans, Eddie Howe, the players will all have going into Sunday's game.
Yeah, Eddie admitted that it would be his best ever managerial season if he was to go and get top 5 and
not that he ranks them, but
he doesn't rank them, but he did admit that, which, to be fair,
I mean, I think it goes without saying.
Well, it's his best managerial season. It's Newcastle's best. Again, I don't know dates on when Newcastle had a season like this, but it's Newcastle's best season. I can comfortably say this in a very, 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 very long time.
Yes.
I just think to be in this position, I think Eddie Howe hit the nail on the head in there when it was to think about where they've came from. Really, the sort of at the start of the season, Brentford was the one we all go back to. How it wasn't nice after that game. It was grim in many ways. It felt like the team had hit a lull. They need some inspiration from somewhere. That eventually comes, I think, when Sandro Tonali gets a run of games, plays that number 6 role. I think he's sort of key to the turnaround. But everyone else has gone with Tonali. Everyone's up the levels, and to go on that sort of, I know it was obviously cup games, of that 9-game winning run in January, it just propelled them back into contention, and they've kept going. I don't know the exact record, but when we beat Chelsea, we were talking about 20 odd wins in
21 games wins in 28, I think it was, and
that's
now it's
a remarkable
21
record.
and 29.
So to put themselves in this position is remarkable. I just really hope they go and get the job done, because they deserve to go and get the job done. I think it would be a real disappointment now if it were to miss out. I don't think it would be a failure of a season by any stretch, but I think it would be a major disappointment that you've worked yourself in a position where you're going at the final day at home against Everton in 4th position in your hands to get the job done. I think it would be hugely disappointing if they don't get the job done, but I think they will.
Yeah, it's one of them. I think you look back at the season, it's ultimately been a successful season by the fact you've won a trophy. It's just the nature, the peaks and troughs of football, the up and down, almost fickle nature of football, which Eddie Howe addressed. If the season ends on a lull, then that's sort of the feeling for a few weeks, and then you go, actually, no, we're still in the Europa League, we still have a trophy to show for it, we've got a good chance of winning the Europa League next season, which was something Eddie Howe was asked about, where it's almost like, do you look at the silver lining? If you do get in the Europa League, it's a competition realistically you'd fancy yourself winning. Whereas the Champions League, you're entering it almost to make up the numbers a little bit.
Yeah.
So
they did last time. There's no beating around the bush. They made up the numbers last time. They got a great result against PSG, but they didn't really lay any punches after that. I think they'll probably go back in the Champions League. Obviously more experience this time, but the transfer window is so important in that respect, where they just have to go and strengthen. Otherwise, I think they'll be better equipped regardless. Even though they've lost players, I just think that experience, but they've got to go and strengthen. Otherwise, it could be another poor. That's harsh.
Could be another tricky one for them that takes its toll on the squad as well. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, on that Europa League situation, Eddie Howe was not having any of it. He was like, Champions League is the aim. Europa League, great competition, but not thinking about that.
No disrespect, he wanted to play at the Europa League, but I mean, that's the thing. Like, take nothing away from sort of Tottenham Hotspur's achievements just because Newcastle would love to win a Europa League, but ultimately, you don't really want to play in that competition when you've got Champions League right in front of you. No
team in world football really, if you're given, do you want to play in the Champions League or the Europa League, is picking the Europa League really?
It depends how you look at it, because football merit, as I say, probably Newcastle got a better chance of winning the Europa League than they do. Champions League definitely got a better chance of winning the Europa League. But as football is these days, it's about you compete to play the best teams, don't you? And you
strive to be the
best, and strive for the best finance as well. And ultimately, Champions League is in many ways levels above the Europa League in terms of prize money, and mostly teams as well. Because there is some good teams in the Europa League.
Yeah.
Not this season with given who won it, but but there is. There is some. Well, there used to be anyway. Because I think, actually, going on a little tangent here, when the teams used to drop out of the Champions League and go in the Europa League, that's when it was like you used to get some really, really top teams.
There was a lot of prestige to the UEFA Cup and Europa League. I think it's probably been lost in recent seasons.
Yeah,
I
think
remember
so.
certainly in the early days, it's before any of our times, but there was an argument that the UEFA Cup was harder to win than the European Cup, because ultimately the European Cup was the champions of every country, and you'd get some crap champions, really.
Yeah.
So the ceiling was higher, but definitely the floor was much lower. Whereas the UEFA Cup back in the day, straight knockout, you had 3 or 4 teams from good countries, like the best of the rest, and it became a better competition, a harder to win competition, arguably because of that. So yeah, that's moved on now, and I used to like Newcastle in the UEFA Cup, but
I remember Channel 5, 2006, I think it was, under Glenn Roeder. Here's that out more.
nah, I don't like that game.
I don't like it either, because I was devastated. I was convinced Newcastle would win it, but
Away goals in the bin.
it is now, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. No, but I loved the UEFA Cup. I was convinced Newcastle were going to win it that year. It's a lovely looking trophy as well.
Yeah, it is.
But it's neat Champions League in terms of.
And
I think UEFA Cup's better than trophy.
Do you? No, I don't. There's too much.
I'm trying to think of the Champions League.
It's too iconic with the big, handle.
I've lost.
You forgot what the Champions League looks like.
The Champions
we'll
League
be lifting it next year, man.
I can't picture me now what the Champions League trophy looks like.
It's like massive, got the big handles,
I'm
big,
lost.
elephant ears almost. You can't remember the Champions League?
I can't remember the Champions League trophy.
That's a bad omen heading into the weekend.
No,
but,
it's that one.
Yeah, Champions League is the focus. But just while we're on the Europa League and cup competitions in general, how did you feel when Tottenham won it? How did you feel when Crystal Palace won the FA Cup? Things like that. The year of the bird, as they say.
It is, the underdog in many regards as well. But it is the year of the bird. I was really happy for Tottenham. I say this having watched Newcastle win a trophy. I think if Newcastle hadn't won a trophy this year, I think we've been watching.
There'd be a bit of bitterness, yeah.
Definitely a bit of bitterness. But no, Newcastle ended their trophy drought, and Palace first trophy in their history.
Yeah.
Tottenham ending their 17-year wait for a trophy. I was really happy for them. I think it's nice to see a different team win it. Manchester United, for as crap as they've been over the last couple of years, have still won trophies. So it was nice to see them, because I think a lot of Manchester United fans went that final convinced they were going to win. Because they win things, but I think it was nice to see them knocked off the perch a little bit, and now they really have had a dismal season.
Yeah.
And they've got a big summer ahead and many, many big years ahead, because I think we're in a massive lull now where I don't really see how they come out of it immediately. I think it's a proper rebuild job at Old Trafford. So it was nice to see them. I think their fans realise that now, because I think winning a Europa League for them would have sort of painted over the cracks a little bit.
Yeah.
And Tottenham wanted it more, I think. So.
I think it was a crap final. 2 crap teams
it was awful
going
final.
against each other, and it was just it was a crap goal that won it. It was one of those.
It was an awful final. FA Cup final was a lot better.
Yeah,
I'll say that actually.
It was a lot more eventful.
It was a lot more eventful. There was a bit of drama on the game with Dean Henderson should have been sent off and not a penalty save. Manchester City, to be fair, backwards and sideways, trying to find gaps, and it never worked. Crystal Palace, one counter attack, bang, Bob's your uncle, 1-0. Look, I say it's good to see other teams win. I don't think Crystal Palace fans are particularly fans of Newcastle United, given some of the banners that they've unleashed in recent seasons. But yeah, from a neutral point of view, I'm quite happy for them, because it's a different winner. It's nice to see different teams win trophies rather than your usual suspects.
Yeah, what I will say, what has sort of resonated with me watching the scenes of Spurs fans and Palace fans this past week is the almost mutual feeling. You now understand what they're going through, and it almost brings back your own emotions of what the Carabao Cup final was like, and that feels nice. Whereas I think if I saw Man U win, I was like, all right, you're probably watching your team win the 10th trophy of your lifetime. You see Man U kid crying, Man City kid crying, it's like, oh, you're about 5, you've seen your team won 3 trophies. Like, grow up, man. I'm coming after 5 now. I don't mean that. But yeah, I think it's been a great season just in many ways, and it'd be nice to cap it off with a nice win for Newcastle United. But on that note, we'll have a word from our sponsors. Here they are. Comply IT Limited. Worrying about disposing of your old IT equipment? Don't be. Comply IT handle everything. Secure collection, detailed tracking, and certified data destruction. That's Comply IT Limited. Four Rivers Financial Planning offer holistic financial advice for all stages of life, ensuring your plan remains robust and adaptable in the ever-changing world we live in. So yeah, those were our two sponsors. Links in the description below. And Jordan, let's get back to the main talking point, Newcastle United. I guess we touched on injury news with Alexander Isak before. Will he not be available? No real certainty on that from Eddie Howe, but there was some certainty on one player in his injury situation, in Joe Linton.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of fans this week I'd see on social media. I was sort of hoping Joe Linton would return. It was more like a wish, or I say a hope that he returned. Not the case. Eddie Howe said last week it was a big possibility he wouldn't play again until next season, and that has proven to be the case. Had another injection this week. I actually think, based on his wife's Instagram, he's been back in Brazil this week. So yeah, he's out until pre-season. I expect he'd be okay for pre-season, which is good, because that's what it's all about now. If you're missing the final game of the season, it's about getting back in enough time for next season. And it sounds like that'll be the case for Joe Linton. It's a shame, because in these type of games, the big games, you miss them, but they've had to deal with them for the last month now, so one more game hopefully won't hurt. And then the other one is Kieran Trippier, who actually might have a chance, based on what I was saying. Said he was in the same situation as Isak.
Yeah, not trained for nearly over 2 weeks now.
Yeah,
apparently.
Which, if he was to be involved, you'd think Kieran Trippier would be on the bench at the very, very least. Matt Target back in training this week, which...
That's a huge boost.
Yeah, well,
Eddie Howe mentioned him, so that was nice. Because he initially sort of ruled him out for the rest of the season, said he may be out for the rest of the season with a hamstring injury, but back on the grass this week.
Yeah, it's
another option.
Matt Target's Instagram caption, one last push.
Hey.
So hopefully one last Premier League appearance for him, because he only made 2 this season. But no, it bolsters a bench, because obviously I know people don't like it, but when Eddie Howe puts 2 goalkeepers on the bench, it makes your squad look very, very thin. So sounds like they'll have Matt Target back, and then potentially Kieran Trippier, but they'll be bench options. And then I think that, personally, for me, you stick with the 5 defenders, 3 defenders.
It worked well against Arsenal, even though they got
I think it's a good system. I think it works. I think it allows them to get bodies forward. So for me, I'll stick with the same team that got beat off Arsenal. They lost last week, but I thought they played very, very well.
So Callum Wilson starting up front for you?
Yes. Yeah, he is, yeah.
Okay. And you asked about Callum Wilson.
Sorry. Actually, if Isak's fit, sorry. So if Isak isn't fit, Wilson, yes. But I think Isak will play.
Okay. So you think Isak?
Yeah.
Or you want Isak, but in another situation, it's the same team as Arsenal.
Yes.
I agree. So we'll keep that nice and short.
Yeah.
But Callum Wilson was a player you asked about, because you've touched on Matt Target. Could be his last appearance for the club. You never know. Callum Wilson, almost certainly, but it very much could be his last appearance for the club, because the contract expires at the end of next month. So, yeah, what did you ask, and what did Eddie Howe say?
Yeah, so Mark Douglas before me asked about final player appearances, and Eddie Howe admitted there could be for many players, but as it is for any other season, so didn't really give too much away there. But I thought I would ask specifically on Callum Wilson, given his contract situation. So Callum Wilson appeared on the High Performance podcast this week with Jake Humphrey. Spoke about how this has been the sort of the trickiest season of his career, given the injuries at the start, and then not being able to get in the team because of Alexander Isak's form. Also addressed his contract situation, where he said what will be. So I asked Eddie Howe if it would be Callum Wilson's last game in a Newcastle shirt, and as he probably predicted, he didn't confirm that. I understand why he didn't, because I don't think Eddie Howe would want Callum Wilson's future to be the main talking point. So if Eddie Howe said in there today, Callum Wilson's played his last game for Newcastle United, I think that's probably one of the biggest talking points to come from the press conference. I don't think Eddie Howe wants to divert the focus or attention from the job at hand. So, conversations over future, as he says, will take place in the summer. So a pretty, as I say, non-answer on Callum Wilson. I don't blame him for that, because they've got a big game at the weekend. You want all your focus on that. But yeah, will Callum Wilson stay? I think as the more time ticks on, the more I think this probably is his last game.
I think so.
I just think the type of player he is as well. I think he wants to go out and play games. And I think he in the podcast as well, he said, "I know my worth." He wasn't being cocky or anything like that, but it was. I think
he's talking about the World Cup next year, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. So I mean, he's probably not going to do that if he's second choice. Yeah. So I think he's got ambitions to still lead the line elsewhere, and I think as long as Alexander Isak at his football club, no one else leads the line.
No.
So for me, I think that's a little insight into Wilson's mind. I think if there is an opportunity to go elsewhere and be the main man, if you like, I think he probably will go.
You'd probably take it because the alternative is staying at Newcastle probably on less money than he's currently on. Newcastle won't trigger an extension on the current terms he's on, so it'll be probably a lower wage packet. So when you're looking at free agents, particularly, Callum Wilson's had his injury troubles well documented, but in terms of pedigree, goal scoring, still has a good CV.
Yeah.
And a newly promoted club or a lower level Premier League club to Newcastle come in and offer him the same terms, I think he snaps the hand off, to be honest. But another player Eddie Howe was asked about who's an alternative to Alexander Isak. Was it the alternative to Alexander Isak against Everton at Goodison Park in terms of being the number 9? Had a game to forget in some ways at Goodison Park. Anthony Gordon didn't play against Everton last season at St James's Park, was suspended. Did play at Goodison Park, but as I've just touched on, missed a penalty, 0-0 draw. We need a big game from him.
This is his first time playing against Everton at St James's Park, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think we'd bang off for it.
Yeah.
I think he'd be absolutely bang on for it. I think
he owes Newcastle performance as well.
I think he does. I think reflection on his performance last week, I thought he tried hard. I think there was no lack of effort from Anthony Gordon. He just wouldn't just come off from him. Obviously gives the ball away for the goal. So I think he's been criticised this week. I do think some of it's been a bit over the top. Even talk of potentially selling him, which I think is nonsense in my opinion. I don't think you consider selling him at all. I think he's a top class player. He was the player of the season last year.
Yeah.
He's had a couple of 3 or 4 months where he hasn't had any rhythm.
Yeah.
Suspension, an injury, couldn't get back in the team because of Harvey Barnes. So I do think there needs a little bit of patience there. But I think he's got a big performance left in him before the end of the season, and obviously it has to be Everton, given that's the only one left. So I would expect him against his former club to show everyone, or remind everyone, if anyone needs reminding, of what a good player he is.
Is he starting on the left wing for you?
Yeah, left wing. Yeah. I like that system because Harvey Barnes, as much as I think he looks a little bit unnatural on the right.
Yeah.
I would still put Anthony Gordon in his preferred position, but I like how the 2 wing backs can offer support in the wide areas, because almost like overload the wide areas.
Yeah.
Jacob Murphy gives support to Harvey Barnes, and obviously Tino Livramento links up with Anthony Gordon, so the wide areas for me are key.
Yeah. You've just mentioned Tino Livramento there, which just sparked something in my head. The England squad, major snub. Dan Burn and Anthony Gordon in it, so well done to them. No Jacob Murphy, which I guess there's been a bit of noise about.
Yeah,
He's had
I didn't expect
good
to get
season.
called up personally.
No, but he has had a good season. He's contributed a lot of goals. Tino Livramento, who has made all recent squads, barring when he's been injured, basically, missed out.
Yeah, I mean, Tino Livramento got his first call up last year based on
very little.
Whereas he's literally the Premier League's, or one of the Premier League's most informed left backs, and Thomas Tuchel hasn't put him in, unless he's injured. That would be the only reasonable excuse to say that they couldn't include him.
He has trained this week though, so unless he got injured.
Oh no, I'm not suggesting he is injured, but I'm saying if he was injured, say the team sheet comes out and Sunday's not there, that's when you go, I will actually understand why you haven't called him up.
Yeah.
So I can't believe they haven't called him up. He's literally, this is the best form he's ever been in his career.
Exactly. Certainly since he's been in Newcastle.
He doesn't get England call up. And Thomas Tuchel, I know it's a different position, but was recalling players like Ivan Toney.
Jordan Henderson's still getting in the squad, different positions, like you say. But
I think it's very, very harsh. Like I don't know the left backs he's put in the squad. Skelly, he's the one that's he started at Wembley. I think he scored his first goal, didn't he, on his debut?
Yeah.
But I don't understand that you pick players on form. I mean, not every manager does, but I would. And Tino Livramento was literally the most informed.
One of
the most informed left backs. So I thought that was really, really harsh. And I don't understand it.
But good to see Dan Burn.
No, it is good.
And Anthony Gordon, I mean, it probably shows it isn't on form. Because Anthony Gordon's done nothing since he got injured for England.
No, you're right. But as I said, Livramento in the squad last time didn't make an appearance in the Tuchel. Wasn't in as good as form as he was a few months ago. Had that run of games now at left back where he's been fantastic, and not in the squad. I personally don't understand it.
Harsh. We're with you, Tino. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You're in our England squad. Not that we have any say. But yeah, this wraps up our final press conference at the Newcastle United Media Centre this season. Like I say, what a season it's been. what has been your highlight from the Newcastle United Media Centre? The press conferences we've done, the videos we've done. What stands out to you? Highlights or lowlights, potentially?
I'll do a highlight. I think ours might be the same, I'm not sure, but for me, it has to be Eddie Howe being asked about drones and from the Canadian national team, women's national team manager, spying on opposition teams with drones. That has to be the highlight because it was so off topic, shall we say.
Yeah, press conference can blend
it's
into
a
each other.
Newcastle United press conference. And Eddie Howe, I think, the expression on his face, he couldn't believe he was being asked about drones from the former Canadian women's national team manager. So that was my highlight because it was so memorable, and the fact that it was just, whoa, I never thought I would hear that asked in a press conference. That's my highlight. Do you want to do your highlight?
I'll second that just based on the fact that, press conferences can blend into one. Anyone who watches the press conferences can sort of just go, those journos asking the same questions every week. Yes, because we want injury stories, we want certain stories, previews of the game, things like that. But yeah, to hear that question, which went on for about 2 minutes as well.
Yes.
It was some question asking performance, and Eddie Howe just didn't really know what to say. But yeah, that was a good one. I do like, I'm going to give a shout out here. I do like Ian Murta, who sits next to me and will pull out some random player, random fact that Eddie Howe's never heard of, I've never heard of, and I think those are always fun.
Yeah.
So credit to Ian Murta. If you watch the Geordie Journos, Ian, you've got my respect, and I always like those questions. So we'll leave it there, or have you got any low lights?
People know my low light. I think if you're a regular watcher of the Geordie Journals and you're a regular watcher of Eddie Howe's press conference, you know my low light. We'll just leave it there.
Okay. So that's a good way to end it. I don't have any low lights. I think it's been a good season.
You've been solid this season. Unflustered.
Ooh, there might have been one. I did get the eyes from Eddie once. Oh, it was in an away game though. It was at Southampton when I started talking absolute nonsense, and Eddie Howe gave us the eyes, and I was like, I don't even know what point I'm trying.
There is the eyes of Eddie when you're asking a question, and it's like I think you really know what you're trying to ask. Yeah, it's like it's not antagonistic or anything like that. It's just like
it's just almost a
it's like
conscious reaction.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't understand you. Or it's like, oh, where's this going? So yeah, I've had that a couple of times this season. But I'd say Eddie Howe gave a review of the journalists.
Yeah.
In the Sun and Sunday.
That was one of my lowlights.
What's that?
Just that question.
He was asked to give a performance on the Newcastle United Media Park this season. The North East Press Park, and give a very, very nice review.
Yes.
Even though he might not have meant, and to be fair enough, he didn't. But no, I think
said he loves our passion.
Yeah, and to be fair, as I say, I had company's press conference and dealing with Eddie Howe. He's a very polite, intelligent, articulate human being. It's a pleasure being listening to this season.
There's a lot worse managers we could be
100%.
Speaking to, and Eddie Howe is one of the best in that regard. So
definitely is.
Well done, Eddie. Well done, Newcastle United. Let's one last push, as Matt Targett would say, and one last push from your Geordie Journos, because we'll be back at St James's Park. Well, you and Liam will be back. I'll be at the game, just sort of enjoying it.
Will the Geordie Journos viewers know what's happening?
Yes, because Liam mentioned it in our last video.
Did he?
Yes.
Alright, okay.
So that's what I'll leave it at. Check out our last video.
We'll see you on Monday for a special.
But yeah, if you like what we do, please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell for all your latest Geordie Journos content. And Liam and Jordan will see you back at St James's Park, hopefully reflecting on a positive result for Newcastle United against Everton on Sunday. Thanks for watching.